Okay, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thank you for doing this with me for my senior project.
No problem.
Okay, for the interview questions, I'm going to like kind of break it up into application process, the online portion, and the summer academy. So to begin,
Okay.
what was your application process like for the VAST program?
Originally I was not sure if I wanted to apply to the program, so my application process was a bit rushed. I found out about it about a week before I was needed. So the first thing I had to do was complete the essay, complete the entire application for what my personal information was. And the second thing, and probably the most important thing, was finishing up and writing the essay because it really gives you the perspective of who you are and what you want to do through the VAST program to the people who want to get selected. And lastly, I asked a recommendation letter, and after that, it was pretty smooth sailing. And then I got an email in November or so, accepting me into the program.
Would you say that the like application was pretty easy for you, even though you only had a week, or like how did you feel about it?
I was pretty I was on the defensive applying, so I kind of had a bare bone essay going. So I had an outline already prepared for it. But I would say that it wasn't the hardest application process I've been through, but it was a bit annoying in terms of how the website worked.
So, how did you hear about the VAST program? Like, what got you initially interested in it?
So a lot of seniors in my analytical chemistry class were talking about their experience at NASA, and I got a bit curious. I was like, wait, you went to NASA for a week, and they started explaining to me how they went through this program called VAST, and they learned a lot of aerospace engineering principles and how they were able to build a mission to Mars. So in particular, it was Dominic Weir and Matthew Bach who really got me into it, and they ultimately influenced who I wanted, which team I wanted to be part of. But I would say those are the two people who first introduced me to the VAST program.
Yeah, and you talked about aerospace. Are you interested in aerospace or like a different field like mechanical or biomedical? Because I remember with my experience with VAST, it was really interesting to see the broad range of people and what they're interested in. So, what are you interested
Yeah, yeah. So I I'm currently focused on becoming an electrical engineer, so hopefully getting an electrical engineering degree. But I've dabbled in aerospace engineering before and kind of worked through a lot of the principles with that. And I agree with what you said. The VAST brings together a lot of people with diverse interests, and sort of that diversity is what brings kind of the uniqueness out of each VAST academy and what they want to do as their mission.
Yeah, definitely. And then moving on to the online portion of VAS, how overall did you feel about like the online portion, like with the technical reports, the readings, and the quizzes?
Um, I'd say that I made it more stressful than I needed to, solely because of how I chose to complete the assignments. With the way that junior year worked out, I just had time on 2 days to finish everything. So what ended up happening was I spent hours on end on one day just completing the entire VAS process, which although was not the most ideal thing, I think worked out in the end because of the way that my master teacher graded everything. But I'd say in terms of difficulty, it is not extremely technical information. It is fairly bare bones in terms of what you need to know to design a mission. It also gives you the flexibility of how deep you want to go into it. For instance, for one of the technical reports, I went in and pretty much designed a entire, I'd say, project within the technical report, which did not need that much detail given the amount of time I spent in it, but it kind of just worked out because it gives you the liberty of how much you want to go into the field.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember in our resources we were given all those readings that were actually really
Hmm.
interesting and they were really useful in the technical reports as well, which I found very helpful.
I
And
agree.
then, so you talked about like you struggled with like leaving it off the last 2 days, which I definitely relate to. And like pretty much everyone I interviewed also said they left it for the weekend before. So, but
Hmm.
besides what you struggled with, like what did you excel in during the online portion?
I think what really made me stand out, I'd say, was the amount of detail I put into each of my technical reports. Um, I really don't like getting a very superficial understanding of things, especially with things that I'm actually passionate about. So, most of the writing did not take a lot of time. Most of the research took a lot of time. So, if you looked at my annotated bibliography or anything like that, it was way too many research articles and not enough, I'd say, normal resources for people. Like I was going through a lot of like engineering jargon and a lot of things. And it taught me a lot about how to read scientific papers and how to like quickly skim them. So I'd say I'd attribute a lot of the things that I've learned to VAS with that regard.
Yeah, definitely. And then like specifically for like the quizzes, do you think that they were pretty like easy and like helpful for your experience?
If you read through the online material that they require you to read, the quiz is pretty straightforward. The math isn't difficult by any means. I'd say that if you've been through algebra, you should be fine with everything.
And then moving on to the summer program, which team were you a part of during the summer program?
I was part of strategic communications, Stratcom.
Okay. And then can you expand on your team and what your team's purpose was for the mission?
Yeah, so we were responsible for sort of the publicity and sort of what the mission was to the people. So essentially, to describe it in terms of human anatomy, we were kind of the skin to the human body, kind of what the outside public sees of the mission. So you're responsible for creating brochures, programs, developing other initiatives to sort of publicize the program, and finally develop a video, kind of showcasing what the program was all about.
And then do you remember or can you think of any specific like tasks or responsibilities that you had to do in your team?
Yeah, so the final thing that we had to do as part of our Stratcom goals was to design a video that kind of encompassed everything. So what science and surface operations did, what mission transit did, we had to take all of their resources and all the things that they did and sort of consolidate it into about a 1.5 minute video, kind of giving the public a general idea of what we needed to do. So like with our mission, it was kind of thinking about taking the next step, taking the next leap in terms of what we needed to do. And we kind of highlighted that through what we wanted to do and sort of how much we wanted humanity to progress forward. And I think if you look at our video and how we did it, I guess the way that we incorporated time and how much it accelerates and how plain it gets, I think that the video does a great job of encompassing what our mission was all about.
So, you said that you did a video that like kind of encompassed the entirety of the mission.
Mhm.
So, in order to make that video, like what teams did you work with frequently and like who did you have to connect with in order to create that video and during your entirety of the summer academy?
Yeah, so Stratcom was really unique in the sense that we had to be present at almost every single meeting, just because of how broad our reach is and how much we need to know for everything. We had to be present at every single meeting. But in terms of the video, we worked very closely with mission integration and human factors in terms of what we needed to get done. Mission transit and science and surface operations definitely lent a great hand in what we needed to do, but a lot of the information we needed in terms of who we needed to appeal to came from mission integration in terms of our ethnic um, combination and what else we needed to get done.
Okay. And then in regards to like communicating with other teams and working with other teams, do you think that you like excelled in this or do you think you struggled with this or how did you feel about it?
Yeah, so my particular role as deputy system manager didn't require me to interact with a lot of other teams. My primary responsibility was making sure that my team was on task and reporting to the system manager what tasks we needed to get done and what information we needed for others. But the few times that I got to interact with other teams, it wasn't terribly difficult in terms of what they wanted from us. Apart from a couple of lighthearted jokes, it was pretty straightforward in terms of what we needed to get done and what information we needed. So I think um, the collaboration and the teams that and their representatives did a great job in terms of collaborating with everyone else.
Yeah, and the way that we communicate with other teams during the academy is we only got those like 10 meetings per day. How did you feel about that? And how did you feel how those meetings were like done and organized?
Um, it wasn't a huge deal for us because again, we sat in at every meeting we were required to. But some of the few meetings that we had to call ourselves, it was a bit stressful in terms of the time they were situated in, because the couple of hours we had at NASA wasn't always enough to get all the stuff done. So we had to gather at CNU and make sure that we got that information and worked on it until 10:30. So I think for most people, and at least on our team, it wasn't the biggest issue. But I do know that after listening to a couple others and personally how I felt, I think that a couple more meetings would have been great.
And then, so you said that you were the deputy systems manager, right?
hmm
So, what was the major impact of your role and like what were your responsibilities for your team?
So it's basically exactly as it sounds. I was responsible for managing the internal operations of what strategic communications did. So I had to make sure that everyone was on task, everyone was getting their things done. And in a lack of better words to explain what my job was, I was essentially the Swiss Army knife for the team. If they needed me to get on the publicity, to get on camera, to design something, if they wanted me to crunch some numbers, I could do that. Or if there's anything that people were slacking off on or did not have time to cover, I was responsible for covering it.
Okay, and then what do you think your strengths were and what do you think you did well with during the summer program?
I think I did a great job in terms of keeping the team morale up because in a lot of times we were swamped with work, especially at the end, especially with the video, because that took a very long time in terms of what we needed to get done. Another strength that I think our team and I did well on was making sure that our products were as best as we can make them because we spent multiple hours developing certain iterations and kind of going through with the entire team to make sure that we kind of got everything done and everything proper.
Mhm. And then on the other side, what do you think were like your weaknesses and what you struggled with during the summer program?
I'd say the biggest thing I struggled with was the meeting at the end when we proposed it to the NASA engineers because I started to freeze up in terms of what I needed to say and my voice started to get all shaky and everything. But I'd say that another weakness in terms of my team was that I didn't contribute enough to certain aspects of it. Like I know that one of our responsibilities, along with mission integration, was making sure that we were aware of all the government relations and all the space laws that applied to the mission. And it was very difficult to find the information, and our specialist did not have a lot of time to do it since he was doubling up on everything. So I feel like I didn't do justice in terms of bringing that aspect of strategic communications to light and really making sure that people understood the government restrictions that NASA had in terms of the mission.
Yeah. I definitely relate to that. The panel and final presentation, I was also very nervous for that. Like what advice would you give or like how did you kind of like overcome your nerves or kind of just like handle them at least a little bit?
If I had to say three words, they would be practice, practice, and practice. Um, the the master teachers know what they're doing in terms of what the process is and how they specify the timeline out. So whenever you're practicing with your team, make sure that you're giving 100% and simulating an actual panel because putting yourself in a similar situation to what you'll eventually be in will eventually calm your nerves down and make sure that you know what you're talking about. And in other things, you will, by the time you get to the vast summer academy and to the panel, you will know what you're talking about, but really make sure that you prepare for those questions, those difficult questions, because the panel is ready to ask those questions that they've accumulated over years that they know will stump everyone.
Yeah, definitely. We my team at least, we definitely practice like real life scenario like or how it would actually be done. And I think that was very helpful for us to do that.
Mhm.
And then can you talk about like what a day would look like for you during the summer academy, like what you would do in a day and like the highlights of the day.
Sure. So we woke up at about at least my room we woke up about like 6:30 because we had to get down to the dorms by around 7:10. And around 7:30 to 8, we ate our breakfast and then we went on a bus to NASA Langley, which is about a 20-minute drive. After that, we got checked in and we got our entire setup ready. After that, it was just getting to work, making sure that we were meeting our deadlines, not exceeding them, getting the necessary information from other teams and meetings, and really just making sure that the team was on task, at least my role. The highlights of the day, at least for me, were when we turned in one of our assignments and kind of the satisfaction that the team got that we had one down, we had X amount to go. And then the other two big things would be the lunch interaction that I had with NASA engineers, because just that experience in terms of what we were able to gather from what they did as their job, as well as how they got there, really gave that sort of motivation and confidence to keep going forward to see if I may end up there. And lastly, the other big highlight of the day, I'd say, was a debrief, because as deputy system manager, I was responsible for making the debrief and making sure that everyone knew what they were talking about. And as the summer academy progresses, you will realize how the debrief goes on. And I think that that progression and how it changed every day kind of made it a really big highlight for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It was really interesting to be able to talk to all those professionals and the interns at lunch because that's definitely like one a really big lifetime experience, like once in a lifetime experience. And it was really cool that we
Mhm.
were able to do that in the program at such a young age.
I agree.
And then so looking back, what do you think is your like overall favorite part of the program? Like what was your favorite thing that you were able to do?
Hmm. I'd say it was definitely the second to last day when we had our panel presentation, because I think the satisfaction of showing the amount of knowledge that you gained over 7 days, as well as the hard work that you put into becoming coming into fruition, really just made it seem that everything was worth it. And if I had to select like the most the best moment, it would be when everyone saw the video and that they were genuinely shocked at how good it was, because they had some pretty low expectations in terms of what we were able to come up with, but I think we blew them away in terms of what we were able to accomplish.
Yeah. And then I remember that we were definitely able to do some really interesting like tours and talks with professionals and hear about their experiences, such as the astronaut, which was very interesting. And that's definitely something that's really impressive and really a really big aspect of VAS. What did you think about those opportunities?
Yeah, having the opportunity to meet Roger Crouch and all the other professionals was definitely a eye-opening experience, especially the interaction we had at the model workshop, where they sort of designed all the tinier models in scale to uh, see if their aircrafts worked or see if their rockets worked. I think it was really eye-opening to see that they just weren't wasting all their resources, that they were just taking in very, I guess, proper process to make sure that they were checking for safety concerns, any engineering related concerns, and any electronic related concerns to make sure that what they were about to build with taxpayer money was really worth it and went to a good place.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so what do you have like any advice or any tips that you would give to students who are now in the application process?
I'll give three tips in terms of progressing it towards everything. The first tip I'd give is make sure that you write your essay well and it really shows what you want out of the academy. Like I wrote my essay about the Deep Space Network and how I was fascinated with RF engineering, radio frequency, apologies. And really that experience that they had and that connection that I made between my current interests and what I wanted to make with VAS was really something I think that should have stood out. The other thing I'd say, and part of that one, the first tip would be to ask a teacher who knows your interest in aerospace or anything related to VAS. So like I asked Mr. Wheeler, the AP computer science teacher, because he knew that I was working on things relating to that. And that I had background in it. So I think that experience really helped with that. The second tip I'd give is probably when they're doing the online course, don't procrastinate. It's probably the simplest and probably the hardest thing to follow, but maybe get all the online coursework done, all the reading done the first, second day. Take a week to thoroughly research for your technical report and take maybe the first weekend or the week before the papers actually due to write the technical report and make sure you have everything done. That way, you're at least a week ahead, and that if you needed to make any last minute adjustments, you have the time to, and you weren't cramming it in at 11:59 p.m. And the last tip I give during the academy is really lean into your teammates, really lean into what their strengths and weaknesses are, because one of the beauties of the vast summer academy is really just the diversity of students it brings all over Virginia. And just that different experience, different skill sets really blend together to really make a really fun experience and a really productive one as well.
Yeah, definitely. Those are really good advice. So then looking back at the academy as a whole and like the entire program as a whole, are you satisfied with your decision to participate in it? Like, are you happy that you ended up deciding to participate and complete it?
Yeah, 100%. Just the opportunity to go to NASA, which is baffling to even think about, and stay there for a week at CNU without and with free of cost was just amazing. The skills that I learned through the online course, the communication and public speaking skills I learned through the vast summer academy are really helping me throughout my senior project journey, as well as what I'm hoping to accomplish in the future as well.
And then regarding the like dorms and the living, how did you feel about living in dorms and with a roommate and like being on your own and kind of experiencing that sort of college life at a young age? And was it like your first time having this experience or?
Staying away from my house was not the first experience. I've been to a couple of summer camps as well as tournaments where I had to stay away for extended amount of time. But I'd say that the facilities at CNU are really good in terms of what we need as the Bass Summer Academy and the scholars. Um, I'd say that the beds and the space that they give is sometimes a bit crammed because we can't really get all of our shirts, all of our pants out within the closet with another roommate. I'd say that at times, if you don't plan out with your other roommates because you share four people share a bathroom, if you don't plan that out properly, you're going to be rushing and you're probably not going to be happy with the situation. Um, and in terms of the food, it was dorm food. I wouldn't say don't expect five-star level food, but don't expect like anything really bad. It's good food. It's going to make you full, and you have a lot of options in terms of what you want to eat.
Yeah, I was fortunate in that for my bathroom, I was one of the end rooms, so I only had to share it with my roommate. So that was
Bruh,
really nice.
that
But
is very lucky.
I remember everyone saying like they did not have AC or the AC didn't work. I remember that problem. That might have just been
Hmm.
all for them. And that was really
Hmm.
fun. Yeah. I think the dorm food was pretty good. I like their coffee a lot. I definitely had a
Hmm.
lot of that to get me through.
Hmm.
But yeah. And then so lastly, what do you think are like the lasting effects that you'll have from this program? And like what do you think you've learned that you'll use in the future and in your future experiences?
Yeah, it's been a great program. I made some great friends through it. I still talk to them to this day. Our our entire team still checks up each Saturday at like 10 a.m. to just make sure how each person's week was, and we sort of try to maintain contact as much as we can. So developing that friend group was really fun, and getting that exposure to different types of people and sort of what their interests were and how to blend them together was a really good experience. One of the bigger lasting effects I'll say though is how it taught me to become a better leader. um, I was pretty, I'd say, self-centered in terms of how I previously led. So that opportunity that my master teacher and interns gave with expanding your horizons and really leaning into everyone's strengths and weaknesses to make sure that they were really working together and you were just there to sort of make sure that everything was going right. was probably the best thing that I got out of it. And in terms of pure skills, I'd say that my public speaking and communication skills improved a little bit. I hope that's evident in this interview. And I'd say that my public speaking, especially with the debriefs and the panel, improved, especially with presenting to an engineers, because that's kind of what I have to do with my senior project. I think that experience I had previously kind of really prepares me for the future as well with what I want to do as an engineer.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I still talk to my roommate, and on the last day, we all made a spreadsheet with all our information and contact information, so we always are able to reach out. And yeah, I definitely worked on my public speaking. Hopefully, it's evident in this interview as well. But
Mhm.
yeah, so do you have any like final remarks or anything you'd want to tell students about the VAST program?
Um, I'd say that if you're on the fence of doing it, just give it a try. You're not obligated to attend the Vast Summer Academy. You're not obligated to finish the entire course if you don't like it. You're just given the opportunity to just seize the opportunity, just take it. Um, one thing I'd say for those who are really serious of doing it, don't spend your entire time really focusing on what Vast want. Focus on what you want out of Vast. So again, like I said before, read through what they said are the required materials, but read more into it. So if you're really interested in the moon, maybe look into the spatial surveys they did with the Mars reconnaissance mission, or look into everything else that they did. Just don't, I say, be so closed-minded with what VAST can offer. Be very broad and very open-minded with what you can get from VAST because it can teach you a lot of things. And if you really learn those things, you will be put in phenomenal shape for the future and for Ocean Lakes as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the open-minded is a great point because I remember I was always really stressed about my scores to get into the summer program. I definitely would recommend just don't worrying about the summer program. Like I turned something in late and I still got in, so just don't worry about that. So yeah, I think that's all. So thank you so much for doing this with me and helping me with my senior project. I hope your senior project is going well.
Um, yeah, it's going. I'll say that I'm encountering a couple of challenges, but that's part of the design process, so it's going well.
Okay, thank you.